Hello and welcome to another mini-sode of Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London. You can find me on Instagram as Skeindeer and on Ravelry as a designer, Skeindeer Knits, and you can join my Ravelry group Skeindeer Knits, which is the best place to get in touch and get pattern support and take part in the community and knit along. Did I mention that? And if I do giveaways. All the things. Anyway, this is a bit of an unplanned mini-sode. Apparently I've gotten into the habit of making in-between episodes where I have some time to record and I've got my face on. So I thought today I'll talk about needle organization. Again, not planned at all. I just pulled out all my needles to show you how I organize my needles so that you can refer to this video if anyone's wondering or whatever. I have talked about this before, not too long ago in main episodes, but I realized, you know, in a whole hour's worth of content, it can be a bit harder to dig out. So I thought I'd comment on it today. I will be primarily focusing on fixed circular needles, but I will start off by talking about interchangeable circular needles. I do not use double pointed needles or single pointed or straight needles much, so that is not something I will be talking about, just so that you know. So these are my interchangeable needles. It is way more than anyone ever needs, but I am a bit of a needle nerd, so my curiosity got the better of me. I do love all of these and I do use all of these. I don't keep needles that I don't use. I don't see the point in that, and I have a lot of projects going, so yes, I do need a lot of needles, and I don't really need to justify that because God knows I spend a lot of my waking hours with these in my hands. So let me go through all the needles in order. First of all, I love Chargu cases, but the content of this case is not Chargu needles. That is in my other Chargu case. I just happen to have two because I got both short and long Chargus, which I'll get back to. So in here I've got my Knit Pros, because Knit Pro, when I bought their needles back in 2012 or something, their cases weren't that great. I didn't like them. They weren't clearly labeled. They were just a little bit so I decided to use my Chargu case. So got all the cables in here. I got a lot of Knit Pro cables. Those are the needles I have been kind of collecting for the longest, so that's why this one's bulging quite a bit. It's because of all of these. And if you open it up, you'll see I've got a lot of really thick needles, like proper thick needles, because sometimes you use those as well. So yeah, that's how I organize them. I do have some DPNs here. These are some very tiny and short, so they're both thin and short. I thought I would be using these for thumbs and things like that, but I haven't really done so. But I do keep them here all together, which isn't the greatest way, I'll admit, because you have to measure them individually, because sadly Knit Pro don't make a habit of labeling the needles. They're getting better right now, but back when Novas were new, they didn't. So that's why I like this Chargu case, because they actually have labels. It's just a shame that they don't have a pocket for 3mm. So because US 2 and US 3, that will be a US 2.5, and because these are made for an American market, that's just lacking, sadly. But other than that, I like this case. It works out fine. And yeah, moving swiftly on to another Knit Pro case. I was given this by Knit Pro to review. This is their Zing needles. Again, they don't have labeled pockets or anything, but at least now they have started to label their needles, so this works out pretty well. Again, there's a pocket for cables and cable stoppers and things like that, so I've seen no need to migrate these needles into my Chargu case. With the other Knit Pro needles, the Zings can just live separately, and that's totally fine, even though there's no reason as to why they should, because they aren't all that different from the Novas. But this is not a needle review, this is just an organization review. So I give my thumbs up to both of these cases, but I will say I do love a bit of a label pocket, I will say that, but I wish that those that were making these cases with label pockets would take into account both the European and the American market. Because really, we try to get the whole spectrum of sizes, even if some are only available in Europe or some are only available in the US. So for people who are trying to get all the sizes available, it would be nice to just have that in the case. But at the same time, these are quite flexible because you can shift your needles around, doesn't depend so much on size, provided that the needles are labeled. So this is my other Chiago case that actually hosts my Chiagos, which I have a lot fewer of, partially because I use these a whole lot more and because I have been collecting them for a shorter amount of time. So I don't have all the thicker needles. Also, can recommend putting your kind of safety T-pins in here because yeah, it's just the fabrics. You can just poke them in here and they're easy access when you need to secure on your needles to the cables. Because side note, the Chiagos, they come loose a lot easier than the other needles in my experience. So it's quite good to have these. There's no need for why there are two. I just kind of like the look. It's a bit like a pirate logo. I don't know. That made no sense. So as you can see, there are two stories here. There's one for the long needles and there's one for the shorter ones. These are the ones that make hat circumference needles, you know, 16 inch, 40 centimeters. So I put those in the lower level. It's a little bit annoying then that these are not labeled and they are in between the top pockets. So that's, but they are labeled. Chiagos are very good at labeling the actual needles, so even if you find that you have to rearrange where they're placed, doesn't really matter. You can just read the needle. Lastly, on interchangeables, before I move on to my fixed needles, which is the kind of main focus and reason behind this video, Highs. Not a huge fan of the cases because I swear every time I open this, all the needles just slide off like this. They just slide out and everything's on the floor. Should I just learn to not open them upside down? Yeah, I like to think I don't, and they still seem to just all come out. This thing doesn't stop them from sliding up the way they would. They're not going to slide up that way. I don't know why this is on, but I still do use the case. It's nice, it's light. I can always carry these needles with me and not worry about them making my bag any heavier or anything like that. I never put any sort of thought into whether I'm packing this whole interchangeable set, because compared to this one, this takes up a lot less space and weighs a lot less, marginally so anyway. Again, we have the lower levels for shorter needles, so these are the ones that could, you know, work better for a hat. And these are longer, but another thing you might want to notice is that some of them are upside down and some of them are right side up, pointing up. The ones pointing up are the steels, the ones pointing down are the sharps. The reason I've done that, well, my kind of remembering rule is that sharps are pointy, with my finger as a witness. It's got like 3 holes in it now. So you want the pointy ones to point down, so not to hurt you when you, for whatever reason, do this. And it means that I can easily separate the two when I know which I choose. I tend to choose sharp needles for cables, lace, superwash yarn, preferably a combination of these. Whereas the steels that are not super sharp, still sharp, I am much more happy using for color work, woolen spun yarn that have a bit more of a stick to them, because I don't want the sharp needle of the sharps to kind of snag on that woolly haze of woolen spun yarns. So that's how I organize these. These actually come with a bit of a pocket here as well as the back. So for both my Chiagos and the Highs, I keep my cables at the back pocket, but the front pocket is great if you have another category of needles, or cables rather. So this is where I put my pink cables, which are for the really thin needles that you will find at the edge, but now I put the flap over again. Oh. These are super fine needles and they need a particularly thin cable. So they are just put here because I don't use them as often. There's no reason why they should be mixed up with the other cables, so they just go in here. So those are my interchangeables. They are amazing. I love them all. I will say my favorites are probably Chiagos, with Highs as a very close second, and on some days my favorites. Knit Bros are the needles that have stayed with me for the longest. I have liked them for the longest, I mean. So yeah, let's go on to fixed circulars. This is the reason I wanted to show you how I organize my needles, because yes, I have had my fixed circulars in a toiletry bag for years and years and years, and it worked out really well until I realized my collection of fixed circulars has gone way beyond the size of that case. The toiletry map was sort of this size, and as you can see, this is a lot wider from here to here. So let me show you how it works. Get the zipper out. Haha. So yeah, this is just a makeup bag. I got it from Amazon. I will link to it below, but I've got I know nothing about this product. This is not an endorsement or anything. It was just the first thing I found that had the dimensions that I needed. The downside of it is that it's quite heavy. It weighs a lot more than the very thin fabric toiletry bag that I had before. So if your collection is a lot smaller than mine, I can actually recommend getting that kind of case instead, because you might want to have to travel with this and bring it around, and this one adds considerable weight to your luggage. But for having it home, absolutely love it. So the lid is really great. I haven't really explored it that much, but it's got, look at that. You could totally put your DPNs in here and short single point needles. Look at those pockets. So if I had that, I would do that. It also has a zipper pocket on the side. This is where I put my needle gauge, other sort of accessories to do with fixed circulars. So what is the system here? Well, you will notice that most of the needles are in their original casings, but if you look closer, I will often combine needles. So here we have ChiaoGoo's 2.75. They are 80 centimeters, and I have two. I probably have more, but these are my preferred needle size for colorwork socks. So that is why I have several, because I have a lot of projects going, and why keep lots and lots of cases when they can all live in one. So I just keep them all in this one. So this sort of system, or lack thereof, can also happen across brands. So I may actually combine, say, ChiaoGoo needles with Addi needles and put them all in the same case, because I can recognize them just by looking at them. So as long as they have the right length and thickness that the label says, then I really don't care. So just for ease and for, you know, space considerations, I will do that. So the way this works, the very back here you have, let's see, it's a 2mm 40 centimeters. So that means that is the thinnest needle I have on the shortest circumference it comes. So the next needle will be, well, it should have been a 2mm 80 centimeter, but apparently this is in some kind of project somewhere. My guess is my Latvian mittens that have been hibernating somewhere. I don't even consider that a whip, to be honest. It was just like, oh, let's try out this cuff. Doesn't count. Should probably retrieve the needle though. Sometimes that needle can also be used for holding stitches, because it's a size that I just never really need. And it goes all the way up to what's it, 375. So you see there's a wall in here. It can be taken out actually, and you can put that wherever you want, or just ignore it altogether. But I found it very useful to separate 375 and thinner, and 4mm and thicker. A 375 is a US 5, so that's kind of how that works. And yeah, this is a 375 100 centimeters, so that would be the longest needle I have for that size. Whereas at the very end here we have, it's an 8mm needle on 40 centimeter circumference, so that would be the only 8mm needle that I have as a fixed needle. So that's that system really. I hope you appreciate it. I've had a lot of people asking me about needle organization. I see a lot of people put this up on their Instagram stories. How do I organize my circulars? It's all a mess. They all like live loosely in outside of their packaging in like one Ziploc bag, and this works. And I will say, I'm sure that lots of you out there thinking, but I'm not very organized, and my needles are just everywhere and I can't keep up the system. I think I would be thinking that, at least if I was to watch this video, because I am not organized. I'm not organized at all, but this is somehow working for me. But I'm not too strict with myself, because on the knob of my bedside drawer, on this kind of drawer knob, these are hanging. So it's not like every time I'm done with a needle I'll be putting it back in the case. I will often just put it at the most convenient place, and I decided that is the knob of my bedside drawer. And so whenever I feel like organizing my needles, I will take these along with a needle gauge and make sure they all end up in the right case. So it's a kind of no pressure way of organizing the needles. You find a way that works for you. This seems to be working out for me. It's reasonably travel friendly. It works no matter what mood I am in terms of getting organized, so I don't have to have like a big roundup, just like a small one ever so often. Should probably have one right now. It's not even that long ago since I did one, but anyway, that just means I have cast off projects, which I'm not gonna feel bad about. So yes, that was this little mini-sode. For anyone wondering if I have any straight needles, I do, I just don't ever use them. So they exist primarily to support my plants. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!